Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So first, do you have questions about last course? No questions? Everything was crystal clear? I doubt. So let me make a quick recap on what we will need and what we will use today. So remember we had this probability measure PL, P infinity, and PL infinity. This was probability measure on planar maps with a perimeter 2L. So in fact there are quadrangulations with perimeter 2L and a finite number of quadrangles inside. It's a Boltzmann measure. By taking a limit when L goes to infinity, so let me always put the external face in blue. That's the external face. By taking L to infinity, remember that the external face may not be a simple face. By taking L to infinity, we define the model on the half plane, so it's something that looks like this maybe. Up, the external face is there, it's infinite, and inside there you've got quadrangles. So here I must emphasize that the external boundary is infinite, and by taking a limit of this measure when we condition the number of vertices inside to go to infinity, we define a measure on quadrangulation with perimeter 2L. Still, the external face may not be a simple face. But here we have an infinite number of vertices inside, so all quadrangles inside. The external face is there. That was the three models of planar maps we have dealt with last week. And we had peeling process on them. So peeling explorations. So I will not recall the peeling exploration in the finite Boltzmann case because I will not use it today, but I will recall the two peeling exploration there. So remember that peeling exploration is just when you are given a map, it's a sequence of submap exploring your underlying map M. And it turns out that under these probability measures, then this sequence is a Markov chain. And the probability transitions are as follows. So let's focus in this case first. So the probability transitions. So imagine that you have explored part of this guy. So you are maybe given with a map like this. You've got holes. You've got maybe some stuff like that. That's your external face. You have holes inside. So let me put them in green. Holes which have not been explored. And of course, there is an infinite hole, only one. Because if you explore the finite part here, then you have an infinite hole on top. So if the next edge to peel is on the boundary of one of these finite holes, there, then you've got the same probability transition as in this case, but I will not use them this week, so I will not recall. But I will recall the probability transition when the edge to peel is on this infinite, on this only infinite hole. Then there are two cases. So either you discover a quadrangle like this, a new face, and your hole is going like that. So this happens with probability 2/3, right? Alpha over rho, 8 over 12, yes. This happens with probability 2/3, or other scenario, so that's the edge that you have peeled, or the other scenario is that the edge that you peel is actually identified with some other edge on the boundary of this hole. So either say on the right, so you identify it with an edge like this on the right. Here you enclose a finite part. That's your new hole here. So that's first case when you identify, say, this edge with an edge here on the boundary. There is a finite part enclosed. Or you may do the same, but identifying this edge with one on the left. So you will end up with something like that. And here you've got a perimeter which is 2L, say. L could be 0, remember. If L is 0, that just means that here you've got a loop of perimeter 0, meaning one vertex. So in the case L is equal to 0, that just means that you have identified this, and here you've got a vertex of the map. Meaning you have identified this edge with the one just next to on the left, and you glue. Everybody sees what I'm doing? And these two scenarios, they happen with the same probability, which is alpha to the minus L minus 1, and the W function at L, if I remember correctly. This is what we called, this is half of nu minus L minus 1 with my notation. Okay? So these two scenarios happen with this probability. Is that okay? You do understand what is going on? And in this case, when you do the probability transition in the case of the UIPQ of the 2L gone, then you have explored some map. That's your map explored after some step n, so that's En. But actually, if you want to be really correct, what I should say is that when you explore a map under this probability transition, under this probability measure, sorry, I told you that there is only one hole that carries an infinite map inside. So there is one hole which is distinguished because it contains the infinite part. All the other holes and the root face is somewhere here, that's the root face. All the other holes are filled with finite maps. So there is one hole which is distinguished. So let me denote that in the pinning exploration. Let me just remember which is this distinguished hole. Okay? So then the peeling process gives you one edge to peel. So as usual, if it's an edge located on a finite hole which is not the one carrying the infinite part, then the probability transitions are as in the finite Boltzmann case, but I don't recall them. So let's assume that the transition happened on the only infinite, on the only hole carrying the infinite map. Then the probability transitions are exactly like this. So either in this hole, which is a finite hole, Let me put it in orange. Either you discover a quadrangle, like this, and this happens with probability 2/3 times if 2L is the perimeter of the hole, this happens with probability HL plus 1 over HL. And the other guys are not affected, of course. Or you may identify the edge you peel either with some guy on the right-hand side enclosing a finite part here, so that the infinite part is the one, say, on the left. Okay? And let's denote the length of this guy by 2k. Or the symmetric, and that's a new hole, or the symmetric event where you identify this red edge with one on the left, enclosing a finite guy here, which leaves the hole carrying the infinite part here, and say that is 2k as well. And this happens with probability which is the same there, alpha k minus 1 WL, but which you modified by the H transform. The new perimeter here is L minus k minus 1 over H. What is this number? It's just the perimeter here. The new perimeter here, it's 2 times L plus 1, and here you may check it's 2 times L minus k minus 1, because here you had perimeter 2k, so you should remove this 2k, but you also should remove these two edges there, so that makes this factor the minus 2. Okay?
Why can we not have infinite faces on the both parts?
That's key point that we proved last week. We proved that in the limit, when the number of guys here is very large, the probability is really tiny to have an event separating two large parts. That disappears. I mean, you can compute what is the probability. So if you have n vertices inside, and if you have a boundary 2L, you can compute what is the probability to have an event that identifies these two guys here, and such that you've got both guys which are bigger than A, and we made a calculation, and n in total. We made a calculation last week showing that this event has a probability which is less than A minus 3/2. So they cannot be both large. Only one is huge, as most of the mass, and the other one is small. That means that there is only, you see, when there is this splitting event, when this hole is split into two holes, only one becomes the new distinguished hole, the new one with this. This other hole is not distinguished. Yes?
It might be just about drawing pictures, but the picture on the left and on the right under the titles probability transitions, why is there these two half lines going to infinity on the left, and because the right is what I would like to think of.
Here or there?
The one you showed, that. So that's different from the one on the right.
Yes, here I'm under this probability measure, P infinity, and P infinity is taking the limit here when L goes to infinity. So the root edge is somewhere here, and you send L to infinity. So you can imagine that when your boundary is larger and larger and larger and larger, then in the limit you see an infinite boundary. This measure is not obtained the same way. We fix L, and we let the size of the map go to infinity. So the boundary is still finite in the limit, but we have an infinite number of quadrangles. They are totally different probability measures. This is the UIHPQ for uniform infinite half-planar quadrangulation, and this is the UIPQ. Actually, not exactly, but let's forget about that, for uniform infinite planar triangulation. This one has the topology of the plane, this one has the topology of the half plane. And you see that they are different, the transition probabilities are not the same. Okay? Is that okay? So if you have not understood what was going on last week, you can just start from scratch from these two blackboards. We will even simplify a bit more our setup by considering, my English is not so good, so filled up explorations. Let's see if you come up with a different word, filled up explorations. So in these two cases, there, here and there, we said that there is, in each case, one hole which is distinguished, which plays a special role. Here it's the only infinite hole, which I may highlight in orange. And there, that's the finite hole which carries the infinite component. What I will do in this course is actually I will not bother discovering what is inside there, these finite holes, meaning that as soon as they are created, these holes, we will fill them with the proper map inside the M. So let me be precise. If you have En, a submap of M with a distinguished hole, then we consider En star over line, which is the map obtained by filling in all the holes of En star with the correct map, because it's sitting inside M, so we fill with the map that is inside M, yeah, with the corresponding submap with the map in M, except for the distinguished hole. So if you prefer, this one, En star over line, only has one hole. This guy is just a map with, say, the external face here, and only one hole. Okay? So in the case, so that's for the topology of the plane. For the topology of the half plane, this is just a guy like that. You've got the external face, and you've got only one hole. Okay? Just take this guy, and you know that there are maps here inside M. Put them inside, close, so that you have only one hole which is left. Okay? Does that make sense? So if now you have such. Okay, let me denote. A guy like that, a filled up exploration. So it's a sequence of map with only one hole, which is obtained that way. So let me describe for you, this is a trivial consequence of what we established last week. So imagine that we have our map that is filled up, like this. Is it correct in English, filled up? What would you...
It's correct. I'm looking for something better and I can't come up with anything right now.
Okay, so that's your map with the finite holes filled up. Let's see what happens when you trigger a pinning step. So either you discover something like this, meaning that you are not creating new holes, it's okay. But if you are triggering an event like that or like that, you are creating a new finite hole there and there. So you must fill in these new finite holes. And what are the distributions of these maps? I ask you. If on this event I create a finite hole, say on the right or on the left of my pinning edge, what is the distribution of the map enclosed inside under this probability measure? Yes?
Just the usual Boltzmann.
Yes, just the usual Boltzmann. One way to see this is, I said, okay, remember that if I had a hole here, a finite one, which is not distinguished, I said that if the pinning steps happens here, everything happens as if we were in a finite Boltzmann. So you may say, okay, when I have a finite hole, I start discovering everything that is inside, and so I have the same pinning steps as in a Boltzmann case. So it's exactly the same as filling everything in one shot, this hole with a Boltzmann guy. Okay? The same happens here when if I do a filled up exploration. So here I'm on the plane. And I have no finite holes. Either I trigger a pinning step like this. Fair enough. My only hole is this one. It has been changed a little bit, but it's the same. Or I have a splitting event creating my distinguished hole and a finite one. But what is the distribution inside? It's just pk. Okay? So if you prefer, this guy, the probability transition of this Markov chain is as follows. You first trigger your step of pinning. And if your pinning step creates for you a finite hole, then you fill this hole in with an independent Boltzmann distribution. Okay? So this guy is a Markov chain with these transitions. I hope that you followed. Okay. Two remarks on these explorations. Let's say one remark first. If E0, E1, and so on is a filled up exploration under this PL infinity, so this perimeter is finite, then the distribution of the perimeter of this guy, so that's the half perimeter of the unique hole. Okay, so by this argument, this guy is a Markov chain. And what are the probability transitions for this guy? So either the perimeter, so assume here that the perimeter, the half perimeter is L. Either it can go up and go to L plus 1 with probability 2/3 time H up arrow L plus 1 divided by H up arrow L. Or it can go down by the quantity minus k minus 1 in two different ways, either by splitting and putting a finite hole on the left of the peeled edge or on the right. So this happens with, that's +1 with this probability and minus k minus 1 with twice this probability there. And with the notation that I introduced last week, this is just mu of 1 times the ratio. And this is mu of minus k minus 1 times the ratio. Okay? So this guy is a Markov chain with these probability transitions. Okay, so the goal of today is to study in the limit when the number of peeling steps is large, this Markov chain. So that's chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. 4? I guess so. Chapter 4. Scaling limit for the peeling process. So first, I want to give you a little bit of background on H transforms. Maybe some of you, no, I already did this pool. Nobody knew the H transform before, right? Okay, so forget 5 minutes about everything that we've done, and this is a new probability course. Imagine that that's a new story. We have a Markov chain on a discrete space, D, for example, with transitions that I denote by Pxy. Okay, these are the probability transition. You are at x. What is the probability to jump to y? This is Pxy. Now, assume you are given h, a function h with values in non-negative reals, such that h is harmonic for the chain. What does that mean, being harmonic? I remind you that it's just to say that the value of h at a point x is obtained as the mean of the value of h after performing one step of the Markov chain. Okay? This is harmonicity for the function h. If you have these two guys, then you can define a new transition kernel Qxy by putting just h of y divided by h of x times Pxy. Definition. So you may say, oh, wait a minute. What if h of x is equal to 0? Okay, let's assume that h of x is different from 0. So if you are on a value h of x, you are sitting on a value x, okay, such that h of x is different from 0, then I claim that this is a transition probability starting from x. Why? let's sum this over y. If you sum this over y, you've got the sum of pxy times h of y, and by this is just equal to h of x. So that proves for you that if you are sitting at the value x, so that your harmonic function is strictly positive, it means that this defines for you a kernel at this point. And easily you see that for this kernel you will never jump to a value y where h of y is equal to 0, because this transition is prohibited, because here you would have 0. Okay? So that's defined a new transition kernel on, say, the set of y, the set of x, such that h of x is strictly positive. Good. Then this is called the H transform of the Markov chain here. And this guy is called, so it's the law of the H transform of P. Okay, so why is that interesting? That's interesting because of the following formula. So it's a very easy computation. So let's denote Xn, the Markov chain under probability transition P, and let's denote Yn, the Markov chain under the probability transition Q. Then we can explicitly relate the law of these chains by the following formula. So imagine that you start from some value x, where h of x is positive, and you ask for a question about the first n0 steps of your walk under the new kernel Q. And I claim that this is just equal to the same question you ask about the initial Markov chain X, but here you multiply by x h of xn0 divided by h of little x, and you put just the indicator that h of xi is never 0, is not 0 for I between 0 and n0. Okay, so imagine a function f which is just indicator. The walk has done this. I give you a path. So example, take f, the indicator of y1 is equal to a little x1, y2 is equal to a little x2, up to yn0, a little xn0. Okay? By the form of these transitions, clearly the Markov chain Y never visits points where the value of the harmonic function is 0. Okay? So here you may consider only those paths that stays in this set, let's say D prime. Okay? Once you have done this, what is the probability of this for this path? Well, you know it's a Markov chain, so it's qx x0 x1 times qx1 x2 times times q x n0 minus 1 x n0. Definition of Markov chain, right? If I give you a path, then probability that the Markov chain takes this path is this. But now look at the form of this. You are modifying pxy by h of y, h of x. If you insert this into this, then this becomes the same, exactly the same product with the p instead of the q, except that you've got the ratio of the h's which cancel all the way except for the last value and the initial one. Okay? That's a proof of this. Because if you prove this for indicators and you just split this f along indicators and that's it. Okay? So it's very easy. What does that tell you now? Let's start with a heuristic. When you look at this and you transform using the law of x, you see that there is this h of xn0 that appears. So the new chain has a tendency to go where h is big, and in particular is not 0. Right? Because if you put 0 here, the chain here never goes to the value where h is equal to 0. So intuitively speaking, yn is xn trying to escape from the values x such that h of x is equal to 0. Okay. Now I think it's good to make the silliest example about H transforms, which is very instructive. So take the following example. The chain xn is simple random walk on Z, started from 1 and killed at 0. That's a Markov chain. Let me show you what are the probability transitions. You've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You start from 1. Probability to jump to 2 is half. From 2 to 3 is half. From 3 to 2 is half. From 2 to 1 is half also. From 1 to 0 is half. But it's absorbed. Killed at 0, absorbed, I should say. Absorbed. So the probability transition when you are at 0 is just 1. So this chain is not irreducible because you've got one absorbing state. It's better for you if you want to have a harmonic function which has a 0 somewhere. Because, okay. Imagine if you are not, if you are irreducible, your function is positive and that has a 0. I'll let you imagine what the function looks like. Okay. Does anybody see a harmonic function for this chain? So I want a function that if I apply the chain here, I got the mean of the two here. 1 is the mean of 2 and 0, right? Yeah, sure. 2 is also the mean of 3 and 1. Oh, good, 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 good. And at 0, 0 is the mean of 0. So h of x is equal to x is indeed harmonic for that chain. Okay? So I may define my new transition probabilities by taking the H transform of this walk with respect to this function H, which is as long as I is bigger than 1. That's my new transitions if I do this H transform. Okay? Good. So I have a honest Markov chain here that I did not say yn, Markov chain with kernel Q. What is this guy? Well, you could say, okay, that's the guy with these transitions. You start from 1. If you start from 1, then what is the probability to jump to 0? 0. What is the probability to jump to 2?
Wow.
Thank you, 1. And so you may perform this Markov chain. I claim that there is a very elegant interpretation of this chain. This chain Y is the chain X condition to never touch 0. So the chain Y is the chain X condition. I never know. In English, there are 1n in condition, because in French, there are 2. So 1. Okay, thank you. Condition to never touch. Don't try to correct all my English mistakes, please, only when I ask. Eh? You were not supposed to laugh. To never touch 0. This is an ill-defined statement. Why? Because if you start the chain xn from 1, say, then you will touch 0 with probability 1, because this is just simple random walk. So you will touch 0. So that's a conditioning which is a conditioning with respect to an event of probability 0. So how do you make sense of this generally? When you want to give a meaning to a conditioning with respect to an event of probability 0, so it's 0. The estimation is all done. 0.
Coming back after NSD.
Ah, so you do a approximation. So in fact, yn is the limit in low of the chain xn condition not to touch. So what would you be your approximation? Not to touch 0 before time n? There are several ways to do. Okay, condition, so first, not to touch 0 before time big N. You may also consider another type of conditioning. You want to say, okay, I don't want to touch 0, so maybe I want to touch 100 before 0. Or condition to touch value n before touching 0. Actually, they both yield to the same limit. So let's see why. In this case, that's totally trivial. What I've done so far is only trivial, trivialities, but which are, that's the chaining of trivialities, which is not trivial. Okay, so imagine you start from 1 and you ask, okay, what is the probability that x0 is equal to 1, x1 is equal to little x1 up to x n0 is equal to little n0, you have the probability to see a finite cylindric event, and you condition on not to touch 0 before n or this one. Which one do you want me to treat? Because the other one you will treat it in the tutorials. This one is easier.
So that we do in tutorial.
No, you'll do this one. It's more natural, but you will need Kemperman formula. Okay, so let's condition on tau. Tau n is the first time you touch n is less than tau 0. Okay? Let's evaluate that. Okay, Markov property will tell you, okay, that's the probability that when you start from 1, you see x0 is equal to 1 up to xn is equal to n0 times the probability by, you need to start now from x0, you need to touch big N. So let's take a limit when n is large. And you need to divide by the event, the probability of the event you have conditioned by. Equalities. What is this? What is this? You laugh. That means that you should know the answer. No, you don't? This is the very first exercise you do in probability.
So this is the first example I gave in the first lecture lesson.
Also,
You are all doomed!
I did it also in tutorial for you.
You are doubly doomed! What is the probability for simple random walk? You start from 1, n, 0. What is the probability that you end up at?
It should make that x0.
Okay, I will take out the suffering from, this is 1 over n, and this is x0 over n. So the ratio is just x0 over 1. So when the limit here, here actually you don't need to take the limit. Actually, you just need to take the limit to say, okay, n is bigger than x0 after some time. And so you end up with probability that x0 is equal to 1 up to xn0 is equal to x0 times, oh, let me write this as h x0 divided by h1. What is this? This is just the probability that starting from 1, the chain y that we changed with the h. So you indeed proved convergence in distribution of this chain conditioned on this event towards the chain y. You'll treat this one in tutorials. You may think about this. This requires to estimate what is the probability starting from x that tau 0 is bigger than n. You need to estimate this. Okay. So in this very silly example, you did that in tutorials?
Yeah, last minute.
My course is really well prepared. Everything has been planned for 2 years just for this particular moment. Thank you very much for the background. Okay. Actually, this fact is general. Theorem. This fact is, the theorem is due to Jean Berthoin and Rob Donnet, 92. This is general for random walk on Z, which oscillates. Meaning that the lim sup and the lim inf are respectively plus infinity and minus infinity. What do I mean by this fact is general? Let's come back to our setup. Our setup. What is our setup? We have a random walk on Z started from L, which is bigger than 1, with independent increments distributed as nu, the probability distribution nu. And this random walk is absorbed in Z minus. Okay, so you have your 0 here, minus 1, minus 2, and here you've got the positive guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have a random walk. When you are at 4, then there is a probability. Let's write this one down. What is the probability for the chain to go from 4 to 5? Then it's nu of 1. Nu of 1 is 2/3. But also there is a probability that you do that. There is also a probability that you do that. This is nu of minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay, so you've got your Markov chain like this. But actually, these transitions, they are absorbed in Z minus, meaning that all these guys, it's one guy, it's one vertex, which can be thought as the symmetry vertex. Once you are here, then you cannot escape from the symmetry unless the moon is aligned with the sun and so on. Okay, that's our setup. And what do? We do the H up arrow transform. Okay, this H up arrow transform is exactly what I erased here. That gives us the chain, which is the half perimeter in the filled up exploration under the UIPQ measure. So the H up arrow transform H up arrow transform of Xn, the simple random walk. It's not the simple random walk, it's the random walk absorbed in Z with increments nu. Denote Yn. Then this has the law of this guy under PL infinity. Right? You seem dubious. No? This is my recap in the very beginning. I said that if we are doing a filled up exploration, so you are under PL infinity, so say that's your external face. Then you've got one hole here. I'm doing on purpose, sometimes I put the hole inside. I'm on a sphere, so it's the same as the sphere. That's the same picture as this one. Huh? Same picture. Okay, and the perimeter, the half perimeter of the hole that we are exploring, the half perimeter is this guy, evolves as a Markov chain, which has this law. And so what Berthouin and Donnet proved, they proved that, okay, this guy, Yn, is the limit of the chain Xn condition, either not to touch 0 before time n, or not to touch, or to touch n before touching 0 as n goes to infinity. So this fact is really general. Okay? So you may, and we will, and that's very important to keep this in mind, we will see this process, which has a geometric content. That's the perimeter of the unique hole that contains the infinite part in a filled-up exploration under this law. This half perimeter evolves as this random walk, but conditioned not to touch 0. Okay? So let's give, yes? Do not hesitate. What's a...
No. That part of the board, I think it's not visible.
Ah.
Yeah.
Can you post the share?
Sure. This? Works in my house, but not here. Better? Thanks. Okay. So let's give one corollary. One corollary of this is that, so under this law, then we have the half perimeter. Sorry, I've put absolute value on the last board. I should keep my notation. This goes to infinity as n goes to infinity. So the perimeter process in any peeling exploration of the UIPQ blows up. Okay? If you keep peeling on this infinite hole, then the perimeter of this hole will grow to infinity. Proof. It's very simple. Now that we have understood all of this. Proof. Imagine we start from L bigger than 2. If you start from L is equal to 1, just wait for one peeling step and 1 or 2 or 3 or a couple, then you will eventually reach L bigger than 2. And let us estimate what is the probability that the heating time of 1, 2, up to L minus 1, I will abbreviate this into strictly less than L. The heating time of this by your chain is finite. Okay? I start my Markov chain from L, and I ask what is the probability that my Markov chain will come back to a value which is lower, strictly lower. What do I want to prove? I want to prove that my Markov chain Y, which is the same as this one, is transient. So a Markov chain like this will be transient if and only if I start from L, there is a positive probability never to come back to a value which is lower. Right? So my goal is to prove that this is strictly less than 1. If it's strictly less than 1, then my Markov chain will be transient. Okay? But what is this? This is expectation starting from L of the heating time of tau L of Y is equal to N, and I sum over L over N. But by the formula that I erased here, which connects the walk Y to the walk X, this is expectation over starting from L of the heating time of a value less than L for the walk X is equal to n times my H transform, H up arrow, of x at this time divided by x at 0, which is L. Okay? Just imagine that you fix a path that ends up at a value lower than L, compute what its exact probability is, and you see that this is the factor popping out. Aha! So I'm still summing over n. I'm doing something very rough. Here I will just say that this is less than the biggest value this can take. What is the biggest value this can take? It's the sup for k strictly less than L of H up arrow k divided by H up arrow L. And then I take this back. What is this back? If I resum over n, it's just the probability that starting from L, then that my chain X reaches a value lower than L. And here I use the key fact that the probability is less than 1. And remember the exact form of H. H of L is 2L, 2 to the minus 2L, choose 2L over 2L among 2L. This function is doing something like this, roughly like square root L, and is strictly increasing in a pinning exploration, is transcendent and goes to infinity. Okay, before making a break, let me try to do some inception, put something in your mind so that during the coffee break you can think about it. Questions about that? These are line-to-line trivial probability stuff, yes?
Could you explain like the beginning of the proof? Why is it enough to show that this probability?
If I have a Markov chain, which when I start from L, there is a positive probability never to come back below, I claim that the Markov chain will be transient. Why? If you start from L here, there is a positive probability never to come back at 0. Imagine that it's not transient. So if it's not transient, it will come back.
Can it be trapped in like one position? Like you come to
this Markov chain has only one, this one are actually no absorbing states. Okay. And is irreducible. Okay. Okay. So for her, there is, for her, there is only one possibility. Either you go to infinity or you will visit everything infinitely many. Because you're irreducible. Huh? That's maybe I should have irreducibility. Okay, give me 10 minutes before the break. This was all discrete. We understood that this law has a very nice probabilistic interpretation as a random walk condition on a zero probability event, which is not to touch the negative part. And we understood that this guy is transient. Our goal now is to understand its scaling limits. So who knows about Donsker theorem? Let's do the complementary. Who doesn't? You, the cameraman. That's it? Only the cameraman? So Donsker theorem tells you that if you have a random walk Sn x1 plus 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 xi with IID random variables, then roughly speaking, if you rescale by square root n, then you got convergence in distribution as n goes to infinity towards Brownian motion. What are the assumptions? Assumptions for Donsker theorem to hold? What are the assumptions?
Second moment, maybe.
Maybe, second moment?
Maybe.
Okay, so if I take xn is equal to 1, always. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Oh, you mean mean valuation?
Okay, so centered and finite variance, indeed. Then you've got this. So, I called it x. Okay, forget. I have reset all my notations. Okay, all the notation have been reset. This x is not the same as this one. In our case, let Sn be sum of IID guys, but where xi is distributed as according to nu, our probability measure nu. Recall that nu is centered, so far so good, but it has a negative tail which is fat, because this is asymptotic to some constant k to the minus 5/2 when k goes to infinity. So the negative tail is fat. In particular, if you want to sum k to the minus 5/2 times k squared to get finite variance, does not work. So my question first is, by which power should we rescale Sn to get a non-trivial limit? What is the order of magnitude of Sn when you sum n guys which have this form? Okay? Do you understand the question? So I am not in the hypothesis of Donsker theorem because my variables, they don't have finite variance. Does the square root n scaling work? Or it doesn't? If yes, why does it work? If no, what is the good scaling? You've got 8 minutes.